republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everyone, welcome on this rainy night. Everyone got their mics on? Okay, we're going to take roll call. Everyone is here except our clerk. Del Wensley is on vacation. We have Kim Taggart, our deputy clerk, is filling in, taking the minutes tonight, so she's here to my left. So we'd like to welcome her up to the table tonight to help us. And we'll go down to the approval of the agenda. For additions, we'd like to add to the agenda, which is on business item 6, under 6 business item, we'll be adding the, for number 4, the farmland and open space PA 116. We could add that to the agenda. Again, that's business item number 4, farmland and open space PA 116. All right, and any other additions or to the agenda? All right, if all those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved for tonight. Okay, we're going to come down to public comment. Anybody tonight? All right. If not, we'll go right down to the consent agenda. And we're going to have Mr. Converse, our treasurer.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the Salem Township approve the following consent agenda items. The minutes of the June 11th, 2013 regular business meetings. There is one correction on there under the closed section 10 that it says roll call vote was taken, McLaughlin was not here. So that needs to be corrected. And the minutes of the closed sessions for the June 11th regular meeting, and also there was, should be included in that the township attorney at Plato was present. And the distributions for June 2013, the general fund, the June check registers of $96,685.60 for checks number 24037 through 24099. The escrow fund for $13,478.81, and that was for checks number 1522 through 1524. Payroll of $48,318.49. Electronic fund transfer of $173.50 to Paycor, and a sewer fund of $6,463.15, and those were checks number 1897 through 1898. And invoices for the July 2013, the general fund is $71,662.56. The sewer fund was $44.19.32, and the escrow was $628.
Support. Okay, all those in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I had one change for this invoice. Is this the time that I would put that in to amend that?
Okay.
Okay. We have an invoice for the consultant for Barry Lonick of Tremore Ecology and Land Services for $728.25.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's 700 and what?
28.
$20.25.
Okay, and this was the
It's the June invoice.
June invoice for his services to the land preservation.
and Conservation Board.
Okay. All right, adding that to, I'm sorry, what was the name of the company? Tremore.
Tremore Ecology.
Okay, adding the $729.25. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those, any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is passed. Okay, down to business items. We have down to the road projects, just to kind of give you an update of what's been going on. The Washtenaw County Road Commission did meet last Tuesday to finalize the deal making or whatever that has been presented between Salem Township and the Road Commission as what they're had put forth as far as the extending the time schedule of payments that are spread out over the 3-year period on the road projects. To make sure that there's no confusion in it, this is $1 million plus $1,007,000 that's spread over 3 years. That's to do the projects that were noted is North Territorial Road, Govertson Road, and also 7 Mile Road. They are in the process of making the contract between Washtenaw County and Salem Township. That will be presented to us very shortly. But it was approved by their board at their last Tuesday's meeting. So that's an update on the roads as of now. Moving on to business item, let's see, down to the assessing, the RFP. I make a motion to appoint the following committee to the assessing RFP committee members and committee charged. I move that we appoint the following members to this committee. Supervisor Gary Whitaker is the chair, trustee John Daniel, treasurer Dale Commerce. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mary Beth seconds. Any questions?
Mr. Supervisor, did you want to include the charge of the committee as well?
Yeah, the charge of it will basically be, as we've gone out for bid on assessing, we will gather them, I believe, July 15th. There's the deadline for the people who are putting their bids in for the appraisals. That will be assessing our township. And this committee will be opening the bids and doing the interviews of the people that have sent the bids in. Any other questions? All right, we have a second? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's passed. Okay, we go down to the Salem Bible Church, the Corn Fest, which will be coming up here in August. Mr. Trent.
Fellow board members, you have an updated motion in front of you that basically is just updating the resolution number, because another item that was planned to be part of the agenda tonight was removed that already had a resolution identified ending in 01. We're modifying the motion to incorporate the Salem Bible Church resolution as 01. Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the request of the Salem Bible Church to close McFadden Street on Saturday, August 17th, 2013, for the 18th Annual Salem Community Corn Fest between the hours of 10:30 a.m. and 9:30 p.m., with the clerk to forward the necessary paperwork to the Washington County Road Commission and adopt Resolution 2013-07-09-01 as attached. And included in the package is a letter that we received from Pastor Lance Rubringer of the Salem Bible Church.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions about?
Mr. Supervisor, just to make a comment that obviously this is an annual event in our community that's well attended, not only by township residents, but also people from the outside that come to support this activity. It's a fun event for family and friends, and I encourage everybody to come out on that third Saturday in August and support this activity. And traditionally, in the past, we've helped facilitate the paperwork to the Road Commission on behalf of the church. The pastor, Lance Rubringer, is identified as the official that will then interface with the Road Commission to take care of the necessary fees and pick up the permits that the Road Commission will approve once they receive the paperwork from the township. And this provides enough lead time by us adopting this tonight so that all that paperwork can be taken care of before the event in mid-August.
Very good. It is a fun event. All right, moving on down to, do I know? Oh, we haven't made I'm sorry. We got a second, right?
Correct.
All right.
Just ramrod that thing
Right,
through,
right,
Mr.
right.
Supervisor.
Something we do every year. So. All right, do we need a roll call on that one, or just?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, for the resolution, okay. So if we could have a roll call, Kim?
Okay. Dale Converse,
Yes.
John Daniel,
Yes.
TJ McLaughlin,
Yes.
Mary Beth Schmidt,
Yes.
David Trent,
Yes.
Lindsay is absent, and Whitaker.
Yes.
Okay, 6
Pass. Okay, down to number 4 is the farmland and open space, PA 116. We received this application from David Geiger on some land that actually it'd be 3 different parcels of farmland and open space. The application was made by Dave, and these following 3 parcels will be covered under this PA 116. It's farmland that will be farmed and under the agricultural, and be for, I believe it says a 10-year period. No development under these guidelines. There's no cost to Salem Township. The application fee that we have, or the application that we have before us. The subject property was previously owned by the Vela family, which early this year had put their land also in to preserve their land and their development rights there through the state. Sue, since you're here tonight, do you want to make any comments about this property or this application?
No, but I appreciate you asking. It really has nothing to do with our Land Preservation Conservation Board. Just any farmer
Right.
can apply for this PA 116.
Right. All right, so I move that Salem Township approve this application. The application of David Geiger to have the following 3 parcels covered under the PA 116 as part of the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Program. 3 parcels are listed. Actually, there's a total of 136 acres, I believe. Now, this property is south of, on 6 miles, on the south side of 6 Mile near Dixboro Road. That was part of the Vela farm.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Supervisor.
All right, have a second? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is passed. Okay, down to our reports. We're down to the clerk revenue expenditures, which have been submitted. And down to B, down to our fire department, Mr. Rockwell.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I appreciate the time. I'm just going to give you a real quick summary of what we've had for fire activity reports for June 2013. We've again seen an increased request for services from the fire department. We've had a request of 42 requirements or requests for the month of June. It worked out to basically 8 motor vehicle accidents and 25 medical. And the other issues like gas leaks, wires down, and public service requests. We've seen an increase with car versus motorcycle accidents within the townships. Most notably, obviously the motorcycle doesn't win, and it's even more devastating when we see that the rider hasn't worn a helmet. So we've suffered 2 of those, I believe, just recently within our township, and also we've seen an increase in cardiac arrest or heart attacks with the number of fatalities within the township. So requests are up. I think it's because we've had somewhat this rain and things like that are causing some issues. We also had one support for the county hazmat team with a response to Ypsilanti Township with the potential of 18,000 gallons of gasoline being released from 2 tankers dropping their landing gear, and responded to those. So we've been fairly busy this last month, and then into this July, we've already been, again, seeing an increase in requests. I'll have a summary if anybody wants a copy of the report. Our response time is still good. We're still under 7 minutes. We're 6 minutes and 33 seconds, which is excellent response time. And again, I attribute that to the fact that the small vehicles are deployed and our guys and gals are able to respond directly with those. Does anybody have any questions? I also want to thank everybody for the participation in the CPR, that community CPR. We got a lot of good feedback on it. We're hoping to do it again in fall, and we recommend that anybody that's interested come and spend 2 days, and I think they'll find it well worth it. Ask any of the participants in the class. I think they got a lot out of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Mr. Supervisor, could I ask?
Sure.
How many attendees came to that CPR class that you folks?
We had, I believe, 14. We're hoping to get more, but actually with a smaller crowd, it's better because we get a good student to instructor relationship, what they like to see from the American Heart Association. The smaller the number of students per instructor, the more happier they are.
I appreciate the write-up that the local newspaper gave us on that as well. It was good to see some of the teenagers get involved in that class as well.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, we'll move on down to board discussion under the potential land purchases, land preservation committee board, and some of the issues that we have been talking about in the past. So let me start out by just kind of give a real brief description, kind of what we have been talking about. I believe it was a couple years ago that the past board had adopted the ordinance of the Land Preservation Board and different activities, how they were to perform their duties, and township be moving forward and buying development rights in the community. To be honest with you and to be open with everybody and to try to get everybody on board what's happened in the past from day one since the new board was elected, people being on board with exactly what the charge is, what the ordinance actually says, what the Land Preservation Board does to try to bring everybody on board, get the community behind it, and moving forward. So as a new board, I appreciate many of the board members trying to take the time to learn, to understand including myself, not understanding it. And the more that we've been involved with it, the more we understand. Some people like it, some people don't like it. So one of the toughest parts of the land preservation has been, I've heard it from residents, people have requested, every time we have a board meeting, we go into closed session, everything is kind of done secretly. People really don't know what's going on. People start hearing things, people start talking about it. What are we really doing, and what is this land preservation board doing, and what is the board doing in discussion in closed session? So at the last month's meeting, we did talk with, as a joint, both boards, as this board recommended, that we talk about it more openly out of closed session to let the people know exactly what the Land Preservation Board is doing, and what this township, if we are interested in development rights, and are we interested in purchasing land, and how we're going about doing it. So there's a number of ways. Unfortunately, not to be negative about it, but unfortunately, the very first piece that we've had, and we've talked about this, has not been the best effort put forth. The past board elected to purchase some development rights in the township, and when you put all the figures together, it doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people who live in the town. Therefore, there has been a lot of people negative about it, and figure, well, to be honest with you, this board says, do we do away with this board? Do we disband, how to change the ordinance, or whatever? But a lot of people, including this board, there's been pros and cons. So then we talked about the idea about purchasing property with the, under the ordinance that the Land Preservation Board is a part of, is about going and purchasing land that the township outright buys as a benefit for the township. Now, I don't know if most of you know, there's a chart over here that kind of explains about properties that are in the township. I know, let me get this over here without knocking it. You probably can't see this chart, but it is kind of interesting. It'll kind of give you an idea of all the property. This is Salem Township up here. And I know it's going to be really hard for you to see if you can look that accurate, but just kind of give you an idea. This is Dixboro Road. This piece that's colored in here would be the Geiger Farm. That's the part of the Ann Arbor Greenbelt that would be preserved. This is the piece here that the township just purchased, I believe.
We did not, I just want to clarify
development
this.
rights.
We did not
Well,
purchase
but
development rights.
all right, but we had like $64,000 that the township spent.
We participated,
All right,
but we
all right,
didn't buy it.
But again, nothing can be developed on this land. The 73 acres that, it's the Hornback property, that the township, so what I'm trying to do is just try to show you some of the land that's in the township that will not be developed, and this is what the Land Preservation Board is about, is to protect a lot of more of the rural character of Salem Township, if we're interested in doing this. So these are kind of the lands, I believe this part down here would be, I believe that's the Fishback property that is over by Joy Road. This is, these are more, let's see, I'm trying to think what other park this is, or this is the conservation piece. Right, that's at Joy and Curtis. And then we also have the Conant property, which is by Napier Road.
Napier and M14.
Right. And the piece that we talked tonight is more of a 6 mile up here at Dixboro Road.
We also have a piece on Curtis Road that is the
Which
Creek's Head.
Is right here
Reserve.
at Curtis between 5 Mile.
5 Mile and Brookville,
Right, on the
on the west side.
west side,
We're talking about
west side road. So these are kind of lands that's kind of colored in, kind of gives you an idea of the township that's, you know, the people have donated land, people have been part of the Ann Arbor Greenbelt, and then, of course, I believe this whole section at Dixboro on the north side, the Bale is in the process of having this all preserved.
And the Hornbeck one is a Ann Arbor Greenbelt project as well.
Right.
Not a Salem Township.
But again, we contribute $64,000 to it.
Right.
So this just kind of gives you a picture of land that basically can't be touched as far as development goes. So as the board has talked, and the Land Preservation Board is about other pieces in the township, a lot of people are concerned about, well, you know, you purchase the development rights if you go that route, and it's land that basically we cannot as a township really use but one day a year. I think they talk about that, but basically they preserve the land that's around them, the owner does, but nothing can be developed, so it gives us that rural characters of that Salem talks about keeping. But again, we're not sure how people feel, and what we want to do is to have the people comment and people talk about, is this really what we want to do with our resources of money, of buying land that we really can't, we can preserve the area so that it stays the rural character that we have, but, you know, we can't use it. The other option would be, is to purchase the property and also get contributions from these different organizations to help us buy it and also preserve it as we move forward. Perfect example, as most of you know, now that people have been talking about it, as the piece of property at 5 Mile and Salem Road, which is 234 acres. What the board has discussed and talked about is that whole piece, which I don't know if most of you know it, it's the Holloway property. It's a beautiful piece of property. To me, it's one of the most beautiful places in Salem. There's a lake on it, there's a creek that runs, the Johnson Creek runs through it. And the idea behind that is, does it make sense for the township to purchase the property, take, you know, on the further west end, which is part of the Ann Arbor Greenbelt, which would be roughly, let's say, 130 some acres, preserve it where it can never be touched, but it still will be the township's, you know, someday we can have trails through it, have a park, whatever we desire to do, but cannot build on it. And then the rest of the property would be owned by the township as an asset to the township to sell it, or maybe someday decide that, hey, we're going to develop it, we can control how it's developed, but it would be an asset to the township. So, business speaking, you're thinking, well, you know, everybody's been throwing prices around, so let's say, as they call it, the Ford traction, they say it's the township has the property appraised at like $2.4 million, $2.3 million. Assessed at. We've had, I believe the Land Preservation Board did a appraisal on it, 3-4 years ago at 1.8 million. We recently had one done recently as a 1.6. And so if you know, if let's say we bought it at $1.5 million, the 234 acres, the idea behind it would be is how much would the Ann Arbor Greenbelt give us to buy that piece of property. So let's say, just roughly speaking, $500,000 that we would get from them. And so that it would cost $1 million to buy, you know, the 234 acres of property, where we can preserve the creek, the lake, and then keep the rest of it for the township asset to see what, you know, do whatever we want, you know, sell it in time or develop it, or however we want to do it. But that's just the idea between buying development rights, if we choose to go that route, or we choose to actually purchase the property and get help from these agencies to do it. The other piece that people have been talking about is the Fulkerson property that has also been an issue back some time ago that we had addressed for the capacity for the fire department to be used as the building that's down on 6 Mile. That's just east of Curtis Road on the, I gave you my directions, on the south side of the road. It's just another example. Say, okay, if, you know, and these are just things that have been talked about as far as at the fire department. You know, we all are talking about a new tanker truck. We have one that's very old, it's leaking, it goes about 30 miles an hour. So we're talking about replacing that and setting money aside for a new tanker truck, all right? In order to get the size of tanker truck to fit in the building, the old building that's where our trucks are, have to be a special truck ordered. We don't know, but I'm saying I've heard of $100,000 more to have a custom truck to fit in that building. But whatever that is, whatever the figures are on that, if you walk in the fire department, and tonight I challenge you to walk through the offices, go in the fire department, and just look at how tight the trucks are inside that building, where you can't even walk around them hardly. So the idea has been, and in the past, has been to look at the property that the Fulkersons have on 6 Mile, and that building, the way it is equipped and set up, of putting a couple fire trucks down in that building to use for the township property, or the township fire department. I believe there's 26 acres involved in that. And so the idea behind that is the same thing, as far as, let's say we keep 5 or 6 acres for the fire department for the building itself, and the other 20 acres that's left would be preserved to put into a program where, you know, if it's Parks and Recs or whatever program decides to give us some funding that, you know, we use it as a park, we have a soccer field or a ball field by the fire department, would help us buy that piece of property, if it's something that the township wants to do. So what we're asking as a board and as a community is we want people's input as far as what are your ideas behind programs like this? Does it make sense for us to do it? You know, basically when you look at the, as they call it, the 4 tracks, when you look at the monies that the township has in reserve, you know, it's, you know, money that's not making much money, but by investing monies into properties, it's just taking monies from our reserve and buying some assets for the township, if it's something that our town really wants to do. But I really want to encourage you to, you know, get, you know, email, you know, you talk, we can go out for breakfast, you can talk to any board members. We want to know what the community thinks. I think it's important that we figure out how to really communicate it through our newsletter to the people in the community and get people's ideas, what they really feel about the programs and doing this. And again, I think that the Land Preservation Board has done, has looked at these properties and also feel, as far as what I'm feeling from them, that they feel that these are 2 good pieces of properties for us to really consider and look at. Any questions about this now, or okay.
I was just going to say, doesn't it make more sense if you're buying development rights to buy adjoining properties so that farmland is preserved in a section? Or are you going to preserve one farm and then a bunch of houses and another farm and so on?
That's a good question. Preferably, I think you'd like to just keep as much in one area, preserve an area like some townships have been able to do. When you look at this map, when you look at this border between the Geigers and the Balos, that section is going to be a big chunk of land that will be open space. I mean, that's the ideal thing to do. I mean, I feel. But again, I think, you know, we can look at everything, but then again, it comes, in my opinion, it comes to the part, well, you know, the township doesn't want to be, I don't feel it needs to be in the business of purchasing, you know, buying land all the time to, you know, it does take stuff off the tax rolls. If a lot of, like, the pieces that we're talking about now kind of really make sense. When you look at the 4 tracks and look what a beautiful piece of property it is, the development of the sand and the gravel and, you know, perking, and the developer can come in and make something of that acres, that's going to be developed. That's a real attractive piece that if the township did buy it, it would preserve that area because, especially with all the sand and gravel up in that area.
Now, where is that?
That's at 5 and Salem Road. It's, and you can see it. It's really, the piece is really beautiful. It's hilly. It's a beautiful piece of property in the township.
I have a question here.
Yes.
The development rights, when you say it takes it off the tax rolls, I would think it would change its tax.
No, I'm talking about, excuse me, and I misspoke. As far as if the township bought it,
On it, that's different.
then,
yeah.
right.
But
But
if
it doesn't,
purchase the development rights, it may lower the tax somewhat. or-
it does, well, and it's funny because on that one piece, you know, his taxes are higher, but there is a portion of that, when they take the tax,
Uncapped. It gets uncapped.
it gets uncapped, but it is, according to our assessor today, said that it is less when they take the development rights off. Linda?
Keep it in farming, and there's a form you sign with the state, it doesn't necessarily have to be uncapped.
Right,
It's
right, I
very
found that out
complex.
today too. That's
There's no simple,
But it
there's no
depends on
simple
when it's
answer
bought.
to any one
Right.
thing that you say.
Right,
There is one simple thing, though, when you look at what land you want to preserve. Land right now that doesn't perk won't develop. You can't get a septic field, a septic permit from Washtenaw County. And a significant amount of the land that Mr. Whitaker went through tonight, for which tax dollars have been spent, if the land just sat there, it would not develop because it has no ability to perk and for people to put in septic fields. And I think if the township's going to focus on land that they want to preserve, it should be a piece like you referenced tonight, that has sand and gravel, that has that ability to be developed, because then we get a better bang for our buck.
Ditto. Ditto.
all right. Yes,
The Fulkerson property, I think, would be an asset to the township to pick it up because of the pond that's there.
That's a good point.
And if that
And the
is part of
hydrant.
the parcel, you didn't say how many acres is involved there, but it'd be a plus for the township to own, and then the fire department can have a standard tanker truck made at a cheaper rate instead of getting the specially built thing to fit inside this building here. And I think that would be a plus not only for the fire department, but for the township. And then anything extra on the back, it could be made into maybe a baseball diamond or whatever, soccer field or for whatever, for the kids of the community.
Any other questions?
Wouldn't an expenditure of this amount have to come before a vote, before the electorate, before it be bought or go through?
Yeah, well, according to the ordinance that the Land Preservation Board has, it says that it does not. We have, purchase or buy development rights. And actually, that's what I do not like about it. I mean, to me, it's like it would be, I don't think any one of these board members up here that I've talked to have ever said that we would want to go and say, let's say, spend $1.5 million and come out and say, hey, folks, look what we bought for you. It just doesn't make sense to me. So that's why we need to be right out in the open. And then the danger of doing something like this is what I'm told by the land preservation people is that if it's something that, we really want, then what's going to stop somebody coming like Mr. Witkowski with all his money, coming in and coming in and buying it from under the township because the township wants it. That's always the danger, whatever. But to me, this is something where it's not an absolute necessary that the township has to do this, but it is something I feel would be a real asset to the township as far as actually owning, let's say it's 80, 100 acres of it that
you know, it's an asset that can be sold if we ever needed it, or develop it the way we want it. But then on the other, and then the west end of the property, which is just a beautiful piece with the lake and the creek, as having it as you know, trails, parks, or whatever for the township in the future.
There's two prices.
Gary, the other thing that we should all think about is if we don't want to buy land or preserve land, what are some of the ideas of what we could do with some of the money that we have that's just sitting there? I mean, so that we could give back to the people, and it's from the landfill that we're receiving all this money. It's not from taxes, but we've enjoyed all this money, and the people of Salem Township, how have we benefited from all that money that's sitting there? Even if you made a lot of money every year on bonds and on different investments, what are we planning to do with that money?
Again, I think it's a very unique thing for our township to be in the shape that we're in, to be able to even consider doing this. But again, it's not like I think that the township should be in, you know, and you and I might differ on it, and, you know, I respect you, you respect me, but I just feel that we don't need to be buying up a bunch of property, or, you know, it's just what really makes sense for our township to do. And to me, when you look at it, if you do all the figures on it, how the land is very developable, and if we can get that piece, it would make sense. I mean, to me, but again, yes, fine.
First of all, the landfill people said that they weren't going to be giving us money after 2016 or 2020. Their part would be filled and they wouldn't be giving us money. Second of all, as Mr. Lewandowski said, build a baseball field or something like that. That costs money not only to build, it costs money to maintain, and it costs money for extra police and extra whatever you have. It's a lot. And in rural, there's no such thing as a baseball field or a park. It's not in the word rural or the definition for it. And if you spend our money, we won't have it, because like I said, the landfill is not forever.
Yes, and we know that. You know, I believe, you know, it's, the last report that I received was 20 more years with the extension of the landfill.
Oh yeah, because they made it bigger.
Right.
Yeah, they went a little higher.
So, but anyway, but this is an idea. As far as like, you know, and everybody has different opinions about ball fields and soccer fields and all that. If you go to South Lyon and you look at it, a lot of new families are in our community now. And it's like, we're getting a ton of phone calls and a ton of people saying, hey, why aren't we involved in Parks and Recs? And why aren't we, you know, and this, and there is a avenue out there of having a soccer field or a baseball field. You look over here, people can't even get time to be on a baseball field because South Lyon, Lyon Township, you just talk to their Parks and Recs. They have waiting lists of people to use their fields because they have none. And so, I mean, again, we can go on and on about it. Go ahead.
The people that say they can't get into South Lyon Parks and Recs because, well, you have to figure we have 5 different school districts you have to accommodate if you join into Parks and Recs.
But again, as a township, I feel it's a disadvantage for us not to provide to our children and our young people avenues of being involved in that. When you take a family over here in the hamlet, they go to South Lyon Parks and Rec and they say, well, for each one of your kids, it's $25 more because you live in Salem because and I'm just telling you what they say because we're too cheap to give them anything. Well, when I did the research on Parks and Recs said, well, you know, give us $60,000, $70,000 and you can be in the program and we still charge it. And I say, it's way too much. But why don't we figure out something or have a committee set up so how we can reimburse our residents with even 4 different school districts and say, you know what, you live in Salem, we're going to help you because you're one of our kids that live in our community. I don't care if you go to Plymouth Schools, Ann Arbor, Northville, or South Lyon. But there should be a way where we can figure it out to help the people who live here. So, I mean, there's ways of doing it, we just need to do it.
And I feel like with this Fulkerson property, if you were to use the fire department there, what better place to have a ball field is
Exactly,
right
yeah.
behind it. You'll have
You got the
firemen
golf
there.
course there.
Yeah,
It's,
and the golf, and if you talk about adjacencies, you know, that is right adjacent to the golf course, so it just, that particular piece of property makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
When you do put up your ball fields and everything, are you going
Well,
to add
I'm-
an extra,
We don't,
an extra police department, a policeman to patrol it? You will need it.
Well, I think Daryl's gonna volunteer to be the constable. Is that what they call him? Yeah.
Oh, Bonnie's that volunteering.
Yes, Jim.
No, I don't.
Yeah, since most of our money on our taxes goes to entities other than the township, particularly to the county, what, can we entice the county to spend some money on recreational facilities if we give them some land to do it on?
I think that there is.
well, we're looking at all those.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of that
Yeah.
Michigan Natural Resource
Right,
Trust Fund that we're
right.
trying to work through, right?
Right.
There's,
But that's
there's,
the wrong committee.
well, that's the Parks and Rec committee, putting that together,
Open space.
open spaces. But that money, there's $30 million out there for the state. that we can go after some of that.
Jeff, Simon?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't necessarily need a policeman up north. They have a ball field and they have a park all set up. They do not have policemen. Fire department's right there. Unless we got off the road of kids, you could, around here.
All right, any other questions? Just, but again, I really want to encourage you, you know, if you have your neighbors, people you can talk with, we really want to get the word out. And before we do any kind of purchases or anything like that, we do really want the public to be involved in it. And I do have to, a couple things I'd like to mention to you tonight. Now, I'm not here to offend anybody or to make anybody mad at me. I mean, you either like me or you hate me, I understand, but I want to thank a number of you that have made the attempt and called on certain issues that have happened in the last few weeks. When I first became the supervisor, my wife and I were in a restaurant Sunday after church, and the guy says, "Are you crazy to put your phone number, your personal number, in the newsletter and let people get a hold of you?" And to be honest with you, it's worked out absolutely wonderful, because I want it to be where if you have a question or a concern, or you hear something that is not right or is right, you need to get an answer about it, and we need to deal with it. And stuff that's been in the paper recently, you know, most of you talked about it, like spending $3 million or whatever, okay, is simply not true. And the problem is when these things come up, I appreciate the diligence of the people that love Salem Township, that want to put that kind of stuff to rest and say, look, let's get to the bottom of it, let's figure out where this is coming from, what is true and not true. And the email was sent out Sunday about not letting the township residents know about the land purchases and everything else. It's simply not true. The same person that sends out the emails about this stuff is the same people that put these ordinance in effect by putting stuff in closed session and not letting you people know. So we as a board want to come to the people of Salem and say, look, here's what we have before us. Let's do something that's positive, and let's, you know, again, we don't all have to agree, and we're not. And I don't care if you don't like me or you do like me, but let's communicate and let's talk and let's do what's best for our town. Because I think we're going to be a better town for it if we figure out. And again, it's not going to do any good by running each other down, and that's not my intent, and I don't want it, and I'm not going to be a part of it. And if that's, I can't stop what people say, but the stuff that's untrue, we need to deal with it and just let's confront each other and let's talk about it and let's do what's right for our town. Any more questions on this? And like I said, I'm going to put this over here and feel free to look at it. And yes, sir.
So what's the forum for discussion, and when will the decisions about any land purchases be made? How much time are you giving this?
Well, basically, the way it had been set up before is there has been offers on the table for the 4 tracks on that 5 Mile in Salem. Right now, there's a current
appraisal being done on the Fulkerson property. So, again, when any of this stuff happens, we believe it just needs to be made public so that people know about it. So, really, this is just a test to get the word out there, let know what we've been talking about in closed session, and then we need to move forward to see how we want to. And I guess what needs to probably happen is we need to rewrite the ordinances, how we move forward on this stuff. But again, I can assure you, unless the board has some comments, that, you know, before we do anything, it's going to be presented to the public. And you know, this is just such a small portion of our township, and we have to figure out how to get this word out to see what our other residents feel about this, to get their input.
Which is my point. I mean, there's, I don't know, 25, 30 people
Right.
here, and you have, I don't know how many thousand
Right.
in the community. You're never going to hear from most of them.
Right.
But is there a forum that we can generate that will allow everybody to hear a little bit more of what the will of the community is, and to help decide how money might
our
be spent?
newsletter's
what
coming out right here. Mary Beth, I think we talked about the first of, in the middle of August, trying to get this out and do a real good, try to get an informational sheet to get to everybody's household and to put out there and discuss. But again, it's important that we get the word out to our community. And again, you know, people have my number, people can come in the town hall, whatever, and let's make a point, let's talk about it. And let's get the feel of what the community really wants, if this is a good thing for our township.
Gary, to answer your question about having a special election to spend the money, we won't have one, but we certainly have our emails out there, and we would love to hear from anybody and everybody, because in essence, that is your vote. And that's a way of contacting us and getting a hold of us to express your concern. And every one of them will be read, and we take those personally, and we can judge on how people feel, strongly or negatively. And that's one of the ways where I can say that I take a lot of issues with people that go in closets. We need to be here. We're public servants. We're here for your service. We're your servants. And that's what I think that we really need to do, and that's what we really want to get, is that feedback from you, and it may be via email is maybe the way of doing it.
I'd rather you call me, or we go out to lunch and talk about it. So I'd rather talk to you face to face, and I'll buy lunch. All right, let's go.
Does this board, does this board have the town board as designation, so we can
Right.
just email once
Yeah.
and you all get it?
Yes.
Okay, because I have not seen
Yeah.
that in.
How many years were you on the board?
Well, I didn't know if this board did the same thing, because they did do it differently on all their, the way they do it.
Town board at Salem, I've been in my head.
Okay, we're down here to public comment. Yes.
Oh, I gotta stand up, okay. I would like to know, in your assessment RFP, well, that thing, the committee, how come you don't have any public involvement? It's all 3 board members and that's it.
It'll be posted for the public to come.
Oh, the public doesn't get a look at we don't get to do anything about it except come later after you guys decided who's gonna get where?
On the assessor? Yeah, we'll be doing the interviews, and you're more than welcome to come to that.
That's an open meeting, is what he's saying, yeah.
Right.
Never mind, that's not what I asked, but okay.
Well,
She wants a seat on the board.
Yeah, I wanna know how come you don't have any public people residents on the board of the committee?
you want to be on the committee?
I knew you'd ask me if I asked that, but no.
All right, all right. All right, anybody else? Yes, sir.
I just want to say I support what the recommendations are from the Preservation Committee. I think
It's all would be in township's best interest.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. If not, anything else from up here? We're adjourned at, wow.
Are you sure you want to go down?
There's a lot of refreshments, folks, for you to have, so stick around and we can talk more, and love to have you stay here. So.